It's
at
like
the last
it's like
second.
someone walks up to somebody and says, "You ever read Hamlet?" And they're like, "No." And they like picks up a skull and bowls and like uses it as a bowling ball, and then walks away and says, "Now you have."
Yeah, it's pretty much what it's like.
Welcome to the Wordy Pair Podcast, your go-to hub for all things writing, world building, and the occasional dive into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We're breaking down the barriers between you and your next great story. Whether you're a seasoned scribe or just scribbling your first sentences, we've got something for you. We'll be discussing everything from crafting compelling characters to dissecting the good, the bad, and the downright bizarre in the world of fiction. Okay, this script says you guys are eccentric. Isn't that just a 3-syllable word for weird? No offense. So, whether you're in need of inspiration, a good laugh, or just a couple of weirdos to keep you company on your writing journey, you're in the right place. Thanks for tuning in to the Wordy Pair Podcast.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Wordy Pair Podcast. We are continuing our look at Arsène Lupin, Gentleman Burglar, and his extraordinary adventures. But this time we're going to laser focus down. We're going to laser focus down on Chapter 6, which is somewhat ironically titled The Seven of Hearts. You'd think he could have just, swapped two of them around and it would have worked better, but apparently not. So as always,
French.
I'm Rudy.
And I am Nitsudge Resraff.
Ooh, okay. Working with a new pen name there. Or you're extremely dyslexic all of a sudden.
I might be.
Which doesn't lend to very good evaluation of your potential understanding of this chapter.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how it goes. This is actually a really long chapter in this particular book, which is why we're going to focus down on this one chapter. And it's also a very fun one. So, I don't know. Where do you want to start?
Well, as I've heard it said, when you don't know where to start, go back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So why not the beginning?
Chapter 6.
This is the chapter. The reason that we wanted to do this one, just in case it has been forgotten, was because this was the one that explained why Maurice Leblanc's self-insert character became Lupin's historiographer.
Correct, right. So
he introduces this chapter in this manner.
And this is funny because several of the chapters in this book are actually written from the perspective of Arsène Lupin himself.
Yeah.
So, the historiographer, or acquaintance, or he actually uses the word historiographer in the English translation. So I don't know.
Yeah, he comes and goes.
He comes and goes, and it's not immediately clear whose perspective you're going from at the start of any of these stories. But this one in particular, he says he has a little, what would you call it? Like a prologue?
He gives a little preamble about how how people often ask him how he became Lupin's historiographer.
Right.
And he answers that by giving us this chapter of the book and saying that it was completely by chance.
And the chance was by chance of him renting a particular house.
Yes, it was. And this story, in and of itself, would have made some pretty good Edgar Allan Poe stuff right at the beginning. Just cut that little piece at the beginning off and maybe add a touch of horror at the end, and it would have fit right in.
Sure.
But yeah, he's never given a name in the story, so you can just we can refer to him.
It's just Maurice LeBlanc.
Yeah. He's out having fun with some friends at the Saint Martin, which I guess is a thing in Paris or something. Yeah. I don't know.
He dined with some friends at the Cascade restaurant.
Yes. And they were having telling stories about thieves and brigands and things, as the translation gives it. I don't think that's quite how the French version went, but that's it's suitable.
Yeah, I mean, the version I have says we talked only of crimes and thefts, and dark and frightful intrigues. That is always a poor overture to a night's sleep.
Yep, and so he's out late at night. He's walking home with his good friend Jean.
And the San Martins are people, I think.
Oh yeah, that's the group of people that he was hanging out with at the Cascade restaurant.
Him and the San Martins and Jean Daspry.
Yeah, so he's walking home with no one but Daspry with him, and as they're approaching his house, I believe Daspry asks him if he's afraid. And I forget what prompted this. Do you have it in front of you?
Well, okay, so this guy Maurice, is very cheap and very poor. And so he basically rented this house that's out in the middle of nowhere, effectively. There's vacant lots and no neighbors, and there's nobody around, and it's very dark, and there's no street lights, and, it's just...
Very Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it's very Scooby-Doo, Haunted Mansion kind of feel. Because it's a big house, but it was also very cheap to rent, and it's also in the middle of, isolation. And so, Jean asks him, "Are you never afraid?" And, Maurice replies, "What an idea." And Jean says, "But this house is so isolated. No neighbors, vacant lots. Really, I am not a coward, and yet..." And so they go on, and they part ways. And of course, this is a story of, 1800s France. So, of course, Maurice has, a manservant named Antoine. But Antoine's away tonight. He's out doing whatever it is that Antoines do.
He's
when
been
they're
given a leave
free
of
time.
absence, if I recall.
Yes, that's right. I was getting there.
Antoine's off screwing around.
Yeah, Maurice goes in, and he goes up, and he lays in bed.
Well, the whole build-up to this is that he goes into his house, realizes that Antoine's not there, because nobody left a candle burning.
Yeah.
So he describes himself as, he's not a coward, but after the night of talking about these things, he kind of hurried up to his bed and lit a candle and placed his revolver by his bedside.
Right.
So he's a little shaken from the storytelling, but, it's just a bit of fun kind of being spooked.
Yeah. He reads himself to sleep, and or at least he prepares to read himself to sleep. And what he finds instead is that he usually uses a paper knife to mark his book where he left off last night. And this time he finds, instead of the paper knife, he finds an envelope there. And it's sealed with 5 seals of red wax, labeled urgent. It's a very strange thing to find going into your home after, a long night of spooky stories.
Yes, in the book that you read, no doubt.
Yeah. So clearly someone has been in the house.
Yeah, someone has been in the house, and at first he opens this letter, and the letter has this very strange message that prompts him to at first take it as a joke, but as it unfolds, we will see that
he takes it as a joke for just a second, because there's not much time for things to happen. Basically, the message says, "Okay, once you read this, don't you freaking move. Don't you move one muscle. Don't you make one sound. Otherwise, you're dead." And
no, it says you are doomed. That is the
thing.
wording I saw in my translation, and
Otherwise, you are doomed. But doomed and dead are basically the same thing. So he barely has time to read this one little paragraph, and then, from then on, he's not supposed to make a move. So clearly, he doesn't labor over it too long. But he's like, "Well, I'm not a coward, and I can face real danger." And but this is pretty disturbing even for the most courageous spirit. He's clutching the paper. He reads it again. And he's like, "Oh, this must be a joke." And he's about to laugh. And then he's like, "Well, wait. Technically, a laugh would be a loud, sound. Maybe I shouldn't do that."
He's about to laugh, and he looks. He just happens to catch at the corner of his eye the fold in the curtains by his window.
You're skipping stuff. Because he's about to laugh, and he doesn't laugh. And then he's like, "Well, I won't laugh, but I'll blow out the candle and go to sleep." And then he's about to blow out the candle, and then he's like, "Well, maybe I shouldn't blow out the candle." And then he heard a noise, a creak somewhere, coming from a large room outside of the bedroom that he uses as a library. And now he's really on edge. Because he's like, "Well, wait, it says don't move, it says don't make a sound, and now I'm hearing noises that I shouldn't be hearing." And then he sees a bulky mass in the curtains that prevent them from hanging straight. And he believes that it is a man ready to ice him at the earliest opportunity that he disobeys what's on the what's on the letter.
Yeah, and being the sensible person that he is, he decides that his best option is to do as the card says and not move.
Yeah.
And he does put up a front of bravery at first, but then he says, but why should I struggle? There could be 10 men behind this guy. Why don't I just sit back and let whatever's going to happen, essentially, which is what he does. He spends a night in gruesome wakeful torment, hoping that nothing bad happens, while he's listening to the noises of what he is assuming is a massive robbery going down in his basement, or downstairs, essentially.
In his library, yeah.
Yeah. So that is how he spends the majority of the night, and even when the sound dies down, the gentleman is still hiding behind his curtain, and so he still does not move. And this goes on all the way up until daylight starts to break.
Yeah. At which point he finally starts to move a little bit. And he's staring at the curtain. He's looking for where the man must be. He's calculating where he must be standing based on the bulge in the curtains. And then he suddenly grabs his revolver and fires at the man. And then leaps out of his bed and rushes to the window. And he's like, well, the bullet passed through the curtain, and it passed through the window glass, but it didn't hit the guy. Because there was never actually a guy there, it looks like. Like, it was just a fold in the curtain that he made into this monster that stopped him from moving over the course of the night. And yet at the same time, there was all that noise in the library. He wonders what the hell he's actually going to find when he goes to check it out. And, well, he's a little surprised by what he finds.
Yes, he heads down and rushes in with his revolver, ready to start firing, or ready to see what's missing. And he discovers that nothing is missing at all. And
nothing's even moved. Everything seems to be exactly where it was when he left it.
And despite all the noise, there is not one thing he can't account for in this room. The only thing that has changed is that he finds a little slip of card under a carpet.
Yeah.
And it's a playing card. It's the 7 of Hearts.
And the weird thing about this particular 7 of Hearts card is that at the point of every little heart in the center of the card, there's a little circular hole. Like a hole punch. And he's like, well, that's kind of weird, but I can't imagine what it could possibly mean. But, hypothetically, if someone had searched this area, he must have been a real Saul Panzer.
Yeah, absolutely. An extraordinary man. So, seeing as he's someone who works in the business of writing columns for things, I don't remember exactly what he said his job was, but he
was a reporter on the staff of a paper, yeah. He was a reporter.
He publishes this story in his paper, just, as a bit of a thing, bit of a weird story, and of course...
Yeah, almost as a piece of fiction, right?
Yeah, and that's how people take it. Most people assume, oh, this is just something to excite the readers, a little fake story that that was invented and placed there to get people to read the paper, whatever. Nobody thought of it anymore after that, except for this one dude.
Yeah, so a couple of mornings later, he wakes up in the morning and he's having his usual morning coffee or whatever, and Antoine, or he hears the doorbell ring, and Antoine is back. Antoine opens the door and says, oh, there's someone here to see you, and he didn't give his name. So Antoine, he says, well, bring him in, we'll see who he is. And he sees this middle-aged man walks in, and he starts asking questions, basically.
Yeah,
he says,
he starts
hey,
asking
is that,
if the...
Yeah, is that article based on reality, or did you just make it up, basically?
And so when he says that he's definitely not made it up, the man is like, well, I might be able to give you some information, but in order to do that, I have to make sure of a few things, and the thing he has to make sure of is a little bit of a mystery, because he says, well, I can't tell you unless I remain in this room by myself for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And, of course, Maurice is a little confused by this, and he says, well, I guess I kind of want to know what it is, so, all right, 2 minutes, I'll come back in 2 minutes, and we'll hash it out, we'll sit around the round table, we'll discuss it, whatever. So he jets, and there's just this brief period of trepidation on the part of Maurice, where he's there waiting for a minute, looking at his watch, letting it count down. The last minute goes by, right?
Yep.
And he's starting to feel like maybe there is something wrong, but he's not sure what. Just has a bad feeling about it. Then he hears a gunshot.
Yep. So he, of course, what he does is he says, well, what the hell happened? Why was there a gunshot in there? He dashes into the room, flings open the door, and once again, nothing has been messed with, as far as he can tell, but laying on the floor is that man, the middle-aged man who came in, and he apparently, it looks like he shot himself through the head, and he's laying there dead.
Yep, and now we have the police involved, and when they get there, there's a little bit of poking around by the police and this or that,
well,
and then someone
you
discovers
skip the fact that under the body, or near the body, he finds like another one of those cards, the Sevens of Hearts.
Well, no, wasn't that, didn't they find it folded up in his hand?
No. At 2 feet from the body, upon the floor, I saw a playing card, the Seven of Hearts. I picked it up, and the lower extremity of each of the 7 spots was pierced with a small round hole. And then the police arrive a half hour later.
No, didn't he have the card of Mr. Andermatt in his hand?
That's a different card, but yes.
Yeah, okay. It's amazing how you can forget these small details. Arsène Lupin would not have forgotten.
No, he would not. So clearly this is a strange thing, and it's even kind of like a little bit suspicious for Maurice, right? Like he's, it's got to be a very strange thing to call the police and say, hey, a man came in, he didn't tell me his name, but then he just wanted to sit in this room for a couple of minutes by himself, and I let him do that, and then he shot himself. So, like, this is strange, but, what can you do but call the police and hope
the
for the
police
best?
are like, that's what they all say.
Yeah. And it's funny because the police are not actually that suspicious of him, or at least they don't seem to be. But what happens is that as they're picking the body up to take it out, this card falls out of his hand. It's a crumpled card that says George Andermatt, 37 Rue de Berry, which is the name of a rich banker. And, they know that it's not, they know that this old guy is not Andermatt, but they wonder, why he has Andermatt's card. So
they call in Andermatt, give him a brief interview. He's like, I don't know who this is. No idea what's going on here. And so he's not really linked to anything at the moment. So he's gone. He's out of there.
He shows up. He's like, well,
yeah, he does show up.
Yeah. And they're like, here's the body. And he says, oh, I actually know this guy. His name is Etienne Varin. Or it's not Etienne Varin, but it might be his brother. The two brothers Varin who live on the Rue de Provence.
Wait, he did know him, didn't he?
Well, he recognized
doesn't he say
him.
He dined with him at one point?
No, from what I remember, he says something like, yeah, this is Etienne Varin, but no, it's not actually him. But I do know that Etienne Varin has a brother, so maybe this is his brother. Yeah, I know his brother. If it's him.
Okay. Yeah, I believe his wife later on says something about how they dined one evening. But
well, that was with a different guy.
Yeah, was it?
Yeah, it was with Louis something or other.
Oh, Louis Lacombe. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
So, let's see how many more things I can forget about this story that I just freaking read.
It's a complicated story for how short it is.
Yeah, it really kind of is.
I mean, there's a lot going on here. There's a bunch of different characters. There's a lot, and they all have these unfamiliar French names. There's 2 brothers that look very much like each other. This is actually a pretty confusing story. I read it a couple of weeks ago, and then I read it again. Was it this morning or maybe yesterday? And even so, like, I even have it open in front of me, and like, I'm like, wait, did it do this or did it do that? It gets very loopy.
Well, I just read it 2 days ago, and I'm still making simple mistakes here, but this is the setup for what becomes a much larger adventure in this story. Even the first part where, the whole thing with the bedroom and staying awake and then discovering nothing was taken, that part alone is this fantastic setup for a story that is going to come to some weird conclusion once a certain person gets involved. And to everyone's surprise, it is not going to be Arsène Lupin. So possibly spoiler here, but possibly not. You have this situation where this newspaper article now exists that describes this story. A guy shows up, kills himself in the same house, and now people take the story seriously and start to ask, all right, what's the deal with this? And then someone else, some other foreign entity, sends something to the newspaper for everyone to see and to sort of spark interest and investigation.
Well, it's funny because before that happens, they actually talk about the Varin brothers a little bit, and how the Varin brothers had tried to sell like a submarine blueprint to somebody, to some government.
Yeah.
And apparently the submarine.
They just said their
is supposed to be
neighbors, but I'm
called
pretty
the
sure
Seven
they
of
were
Hearts.
talking about
They mean Germany.
England. Germany?
Yeah.
Well, they
'Cause
said their enemy, and nobody's
it's
more
the
of an enemy
Emperor.
to France than England, so...
No, it's Germany. This is the late 1800s. There was just a
It's-
siege.
Oh, fair enough, but...
Siege
I'm
of
sure they
Paris,
still
1870, 1871, Germany versus France. Yeah.
I'm sure they still hate England more, just putting that
Well,
out there.
no, I mean, I think England is one of the possible parties that's trying to grab the submarine, but he does say emperor when he's talking about the Seven of Hearts
that's
submarine.
right.
And this emperor can't be... You wouldn't call the King of England an emperor.
Right.
And I think it was even a queen then. But there was an emperor of the... What would you call... What was Germany called back then? Before it
I don't know.
unified?
Deutschland?
Well, no, that's the name of Germany after... I
After
forget
the
what
unification?
For some reason, I'm blanking on the name, but yeah, this is before Germany unified
The
into
old
one big
Rhine.
country. Well, no,
Oh, that
the
was
Rhineland
later,
is a
too.
place in Germany, but yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think it was even known as the Rhineland in this time period.
Oh, it probably was. I mean, the Rhine is a river, and so the Rhineland is a place around Rhine, the river.
Oh, was it? It was just always called that?
Yeah, I mean, as
Oh.
long as the river's been named the Rhine.
We got the Seine, the Rhine, and the Santa Maria.
Yeah,
Wait, no, that's a
something like
boat.
that. Well, boats and rivers are the same thing, right?
Well, I mean, they exist quite parallel to one another.
Adjacent, if you will.
Yes.
This isn't funny. We should go on.
I tried. I really tried. I don't know enough about Germany to really make it funny. Other than the funny accent. I can do the funny accent. Should I do the funny accent?
We did that
Are we
last
canceled
time.
we're canceled by Germany already.
Yeah.
We'll get the
So-
Belgians next.
So there's a newspaper called the Echo de France, and an article is published with a name Salvatore under it, and it's about Louis Lacombe and this Seven of Hearts submarine. Louis Lacombe was a mining engineer, but he resigned his job as a mining engineer and he started working on this idea for a submarine boat, and he was going to give it to or sell it to the Ministry of Marine in France, and he was working with this Andermatt banker, and but there was some skullduggery that happened. Basically, Louis Lacombe vanished after eating dinner at Andermatt's house, and then then these Varin brothers ended up with the blueprints. It seemed like, and they tried to sell the blueprints to, I believe, Germany, but the submarine that Germany built based on the plans kind of didn't work, which is usually bad.
Before they tried to sell it to Germany, they tried to sell it to Mr. Andermatt.
Oh, okay.
I believe. There is a point at which they did try to sell it to him, but we'll sort that out as we go along. So yeah, so they did end up selling the plans to Germany, but as Salvatore explains in his letter, the submarine was a failure, but we now know that the plans were in fact sold. And
but apparently they were incomplete.
Yeah, they were incomplete, and it raises several questions. Like, they have clearly lost any fear of trying to sell these plans.
Yeah,
Since it's all gone hooey anyway. So there's this conspiracy sort of unrolling. Like, what happened to Louis Lacombe? Who are these brothers? Why do they have these plans? Why is it?
Why a submarine?
Is there a threat to the plans being completed and ending up in the
Yeah.
hands of the enemy? And why is this Salvatore trying to interfere with everything?
Right.
And he also makes the
Where
bold
did this
claim-
Salvatore get all this information too? Is another question.
Yes.
Because there's a possibility that Salvatore is Andermatt or one of the Varin brothers or something like that.
Right. And he even says that they're going to make Andermatt an
A
unwitting
collaborator.
accomplice. Yes, a
Yeah.
collaborator in solving
Whether he
this
likes it or not.
mystery.
But
Yeah.
that could just be a camouflage. That could be Andermatt
Yeah.
himself putting up a smokescreen.
Well, it's important that that is known because if you assume that it's not a smokescreen and this is just someone doing something to Andermatt, then you have to wonder, why is he confident that he'll be able to force Andermatt's hand? And
Yeah.
Does he have some kind of does he have something on someone himself that he's blackmailing people with, or
Sure.
what hold does he have over people that he can make these bold proclamations, and why is he doing it? This leads to the mystery portion of the story, wherein Maurice and his friend Daspry start
Yeah.
paying attention to these things that are popping up in the newspaper from Salvatore, and wondering what they can do to try and solve all of this, since,
Yeah.
They're actually at the house. I believe Daspry is the one that really pushes to try and interfere and solve this mystery, and they don't really have too many leads right away.
Right.
Daspry is a very imaginative and resourceful person when he gets a lead, but until they have one, he doesn't really seem to have much to do.
To their good fortune, however, a lead walks in.
Yes. Yes, the wife of what is he, a
Andermatt.
baron?
He's a banker.
Don't they call him like Baron Andermatt or something?
I
He has a
don't
title.
think so. Monsieur. They call him Monsieur.
Okay. Well, then that's title
He doesn't
enough.
have a title other than Mister.
Buddy Andermatt. So his wife shows up, and she gives them this story about, of course, the Varans were, or Lacombe was dining with her husband, yada yada. Apparently, she had this brief stint of a semi-affair, a love letter writing affair with Louis Lacombe. And these letters are actually one of the reasons that there is a discrepancy in what Andermatt told the police and what Salvatore said in the papers, because Salvatore calls out Andermatt in the papers, saying that he does know more about these Varan brothers than he lets on.
Right.
So his wife is there speaking to Maurice and Daspry and tells them that one of the reasons that her husband wasn't able to do anything to the Varans when he suspected they were the ones that murdered Louis Lacombe was because of these letters that apparently they had gotten their hands on.
Yeah.
After
it's one of those things, right? Because Lacombe vanishes.
Yeah.
Now Lacombe was living with the Varin brothers, but
yes.
And so a couple of days later, the one of the Varin brothers shows up, and he has Lacombe's papers, which Andermatt thinks is very surprising. But then it turns out that Varin is also going to blackmail Andermatt because he didn't just get the plans; he got all of Lacombe's papers, or so he thinks, including these letters.
Yeah, and there is a bit of a question before the end of the story. Did they really kill him, or is it just happenstance that because they lived with him, they had both the letters and the plans? Because that's that's probably where they would be, is in Lacombe's house.
Yeah, because Lacombe's body was never found. There was an investigation, but nobody ever found his body. Nobody ever found any leads. It seemed strange that he would vanish right on the cusp of selling these plans, but at the same time, maybe he had some change of conscience or something, and so he, decided to get while the getting was good.
Right, but this still doesn't answer the question of why one of the Varans blew his brains out in this room, and that's
still a very open question.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that has Daspry and Maurice, trying to put these pieces together to see where a coherent story comes out of all of this. Why would he shoot himself in that room? And of course, it's Andermatt's wife talking about how there's probably she's the one that gives them this hint that Lacombe used to. Well, Lacombe used to work on these safes and locking mechanisms and things.
Right.
And so she believes that all of these things that he had were stored in this house in some kind of secret safe.
Right.
Which, Umineko might have something to say about having secret safes and hiding places, but for a Lupin story, it works fantastically.
Yeah. I mean, at least Lacombe didn't try to cut himself up with wire snippers. and flush himself down the toilet.
Right, which is very difficult to do. I don't know if you've ever tried.
Yeah.
So, Dasbury does come up with... I won't say that this is a brilliant plan, but he comes up with a plan.
Yeah.
And he tells Madame Andermatt to write to Salvatore. He explains that it seems like Salvatore is focused on these plans much more than he is on any of these letters that he may have come across or may know something about. And so he tells her to write to him and tell him everything and leave nothing out and show that she's willing to work with him. And that might be enough to get him to, since they're moving in the same direction trying to solve this mystery anyway, maybe she can persuade him to do something about the letters and make that problem go away. Because it seems to Dasbury, according to what he's told by Madame Andermatt, that her husband has not yet read these letters, and therefore he isn't in possession of them. Because that's her worry when she shows up. She believes that he found those letters, and he was the one that cracked whatever safe was in this house that night. But Dasbury points out that he hasn't had any... He asks her if he's had any change in attitude towards her, because they're already... She says that they live as strangers, because he suspects what might be in these letters, and that's why he wants to find them and, keep them from becoming a scandal. But he doesn't know what's in the letters, but his suspicion was enough to put them in a situation where they essentially live as strangers. They are not really living as husband and wife.
Right.
But she believes that if he didn't know the contents of those letters, that he wouldn't act that way. Or at least if he didn't, if he had reason to believe that there was nothing in it, that he would still love her. And so that's
it's also
her
worth
concern.
noting that if he was the one who was behind the disappearance of Louis Lacombe, that he probably would have gotten the letters along with the plans. And so, this kind of shifts suspicion away from Andermatt, and they have to find another place to put it, basically.
Yeah, but the whole letter thing is pretty important, because that's what gives them all a big clue as to what's going on. Since obviously, or at least Dasbury believes that Andermatt does not have these letters, because he says that you're sure you're living like strangers, but he hasn't changed since the time that you think he found those letters. He hasn't gotten gloomier or angrier or anything like that. So his suspicion is that he does not have those letters, and he was not the one in that house. And so he says, write to Salvatore, tell him everything. Maybe he can prevent those letters from getting out, and something can be done about your situation. Dasbury is being very generously kind, because she has all but confessed that the contents of the letters are exactly what she doesn't want her husband to find out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this is a really, really big part of the story. So she takes off and essentially does what Dasbury asked her to do. I don't quite remember the timing of the next event. I don't remember if they went to that open lot immediately after this, or if they got a response from Salvatore first. But there is a response from Salvatore where he says, he tells Madame Andermatt that he's watching everything and not to worry. He'll take care of events on his side.
Yeah, it's weird, because Salvatore sent the letter anonymously to that place that published it, but somehow I guess she sends something back to him. It's a little bit strange how that works.
Well,
right?
I don't think I think that you're supposed to assume in the story that she wrote something in a column that got her something in the newspaper.
Like she published something in a newspaper that Salvatore would read.
And then get in contact with her.
Yeah. So she gets a letter from Salvatore, and he says, "Have not found the letters, but I will get them. Rest easy, I am watching everything. Salvatore," or S. And the Maurice looks at this letter, and in fact, he notices that the handwriting in it is the same as the letter that he got that was in his book on the night when all that weird stuff went down.
And so now we have reason to believe that Salvatore was in fact the person that was in that house and opening the safe for whatever mechanism Louis Lacombe had devised.
Yeah.
I believe this is the point at which Dasbury gets obsessed with finding the safe.
Right. So he's examining stuff. He's raising the slates on the roof. He's examining the stones of the foundation. he even gets a pickaxe and a spade and starts like pointing at the various vacant lots and saying, let's poke at these a little bit.
And so they do. Him and Maurice go and poke around a lot, and they find a little bit of a suspicious area that's covered in a bunch of bramble and dirt and things in a corner. And they start digging, and, well, I don't know. What was your impression of... Yeah, they do find bones. What was your impression of their discovery at this juncture in the story, in this spot that could have easily been checked, I guess, but probably wasn't?
Well, it's one of those things where it seems in retrospect it seems convenient, but at the same time, when you're reading it for the first time or when you haven't read it in a long time, it flows so quickly, and the writing kind of jumps over things rather quickly to the point where you're like, oh, okay, they were looking around and they saw this pile and they decided to look under the pile. Okay, fair enough. It's kind of surprising that the police didn't, but maybe they did. Maybe a storm has since uncovered some of this gravel. Who knows, right?
I mean, I don't know how police work worked in the late 1800s. My assumption, maybe they didn't do like, this guy disappeared, let's check the surrounding area and see if like something happened to him in the immediate vicinity and, do a dragnet or whatever. But it's possible that's not the case. And so since a guy
certainly
disappears...
they could have, but it looks like they didn't.
Yeah. Well, a guy disappears and nobody knows where he went, and so maybe there's just no reason for them to think, oh, let's start digging up property.
Sure.
So, fair enough, one way or the other, but the point is they find a skeleton, and they also find a metallic card, a little iron card, that is the Seven of Hearts.
Well, it has red
holes.
spots on the same place where there would be spots on the Seven of Hearts card, yeah.
And it's got those same punched holes in it.
Correct.
So, oh geez, who was it that found the safe again?
It was Salvatore later on.
Oh yeah, Salvatore, right? Because they don't open it right away. They don't. Find
they don't even know where it is. Yeah. Like they look around some more. They clearly there's something going on with this pattern of this Seven of Hearts playing card pattern, but they have no idea what it is. They wonder if there might be something in the room. There's a room in the house that has all these mosaics, and they're like looking around, but there's nothing like definitive that happens. Not until much later.
Right, and well, not even much later, because it's actually closing into the culmination.
Yeah.
This is the point at which Salvatore sends a letter to Maurice and makes a strange request of his house at the moment.
So, Maurice already knows, or at least strongly suspects, that the person who looked around in his house at the beginning of the story was Salvatore. Now he gets another letter, and it says, hey, could you please leave your doors unlocked on this particular night and just kind of not be there? I'd be very grateful if you did that. Thank you so much.
Well, he also reminds him that he took very good care of his house on the night that he visited, which was the night
true.
That...
Yeah, that's a good point. Because now that lead is closed now. It's like not only does the handwriting seem similar, but also Salvatore admits to being the person who did the first caper.
Yeah, I love that little bit of comedy in that letter where he's just like, I made sure to take very good care of your place when I visited. I hope you return the favor by doing me this particular favor.
Right.
So what ends up happening is Daspry shows up, and Maurice shows him the letter, and instead of... Well, of course, they're like... Daspry's like, all right, well, are we going to leave then? And Maurice is like, no, I want to see what's going on. And just as they're about to... they're securing a little hiding space around the chimney where a curtain is hanging. And what is it with mystery stories and hanging curtains that people hide behind?
It's what you did back in the 1800s.
Well, I mean, it's also what happened... It happened in several Nero Wolfe stories, too.
Really?
Yeah, there was the guy in Prisoner's Base hiding behind the curtain, or at least theoretically behind the curtain. There was...
he was in a closet one time. He was... I mean...
Yeah, but he had 3 different murders he committed.
Right. But, I don't know. I guess... So, like, back in the day, there wasn't fiberglass insulation. And so what you would typically do is you would drape tapestries all around things, and they would provide a little bit of an air barrier to drafts and wind and cold winds in the winter.
Yeah.
So this is kind of, I think, the extension of that custom.
And that is actually the most interesting.
Also, they're
thing
French, so like,
yes,
come on.
But they decide they're going to stay, and at that moment, this is a part of the story that confuses me. It seems like happenstance, but there's also a part of me that wonders if, like, was it originally Maurice LeBlanc's intention that this was not happenstance, that Salvatore had arranged for this to happen, that Madame Andermatt also shows up?
Yeah.
Because, again, this is a really convenient thing that happens for her to be there. So,
yeah, well, she gets a letter from Salvatore, and the letter tells her to be there.
No, the letter tells her husband to, and she happens to read it.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah. He gets a letter, but the servant hands it to her instead, and she reads it before he grabs it out of her hands. And yeah, it's telling him to be there, so she's like, well, I'm going to get there first, and we're going to, maybe confront him, or who knows what.
Yep, so they're hiding behind this one of many velvet tapestries in front of the chimney.
Yeah.
And the first thing that happens is the living Varan brother shows up.
Right.
And he starts poking around, looking at things. He's actually very suspicious of what's going on because, he's in the blackmailing business. You kind of got to be.
Yeah.
And he actually does look at the curtain hanging by the chimney suspiciously for a moment. But it is at that time that Mr. Andermatt shows up.
Right.
Which would have been a much better or a much funnier name for Mr. Anderson in The Matrix, now that I think about it.
I mean, but if The Matrix was French, it would have been a French movie, and that would have been bad.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't know.
So these two guys...
if you've ever seen any of the Arsène Lupin movies, but they are not good.
Oh, that's a shame.
They're real... Yeah, just... Anyway.
Like, how bad? Explain. No, let's take a little sidetrack.
I watched 25 minutes of the one they made in 2006, I believe.
Oh, no.
And the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh, this is not good. And the first 10 minutes, I was like, I don't know if I can keep watching it, but I gotta give it a fair shake. And then 15 minutes goes by, and I'm like, are they only going to cover the events of the Queen's necklace in this entire movie? And then 20 minutes goes by, and I'm like, nothing is happening. This is not an Arsène Lupin story. And then 25 minutes goes by, and I was like, I do not have to watch the rest of this. This is not an Arsène Lupin movie. I don't care what the character's name is.
Oh, goodness. That's terrifying to hear. You think that,
really
they're very short and simple. Well, not simple, but they're very short stories. And you'd think that you could just kind of like turn it into a screenplay and you'd be good to go. But apparently they decided to like fill it with baguette-brained nonsense.
Yeah, well, one day we'll talk about the Netflix Arsène Lupin television series, or Netflix series, that is one of the great living human atrocities.
Oh, we're going to need to cover that, actually, yes.
I only watched the first season. It somehow got more than one season. I think it's got 4 seasons. It's abominable.
I see.
It is a slight to every Arsène Lupin fan in existence.
I mean... Okay, we're going to have to make an episode for that.
I watched it like 4 years ago, I think. I don't remember that much about it.
You're going to need to watch it again. Or maybe I will. I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing that really stuck out to me.
Okay.
There is a story, I believe it's in Extraordinary Adventures. I believe it's called The Mysterious Traveler. Yes, because it's name dropped in the show. The Mysterious Traveler is basically a story about some guy that shows up and robs someone on a train, and it just so happens that the guy he tackles and ties up is Arsène Lupin, and so Lupin takes it upon himself to find this guy and see what's going on and get some revenge. And the events that happen in the Netflix show, it's basically a show about a guy who likes the Arsène Lupin books so much he decided to emulate Arsène Lupin.
Oh, no.
And so he's pulling all these same tricks that Arsène Lupin did in the books, but he's doing it verbatim. So, like, anyone that read the books would be like, oh, I know what's going on here. And it would be easy to catch this guy, but for some reason, there's this Ganimard wannabe in the show that is, like, slowly picking up on the fact that the main character is emulating Arsène Lupin.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, they're on a train, and
Mm-hmm.
there's this little switcheroo with passports and things that happens where the main character in the show asks the bad guy of that episode, the guy that he's essentially going to screw over and trap into being arrested.
Yeah.
He says the line, "Have you ever heard the story of the mysterious traveler?"
Oh.
And the guy goes, "No." And then the police show up on the train and arrest this guy, and as the Lupin wannabe is leaving, he goes, "Now you have." And it's just like, what do you mean? This isn't how you do a cool one-liner. What do you mean now? First off, this isn't what happened in The Mysterious Traveler.
Correct.
In The Mysterious Traveler, Arsène Lupin pretended to be someone interested in catching a thief, and so he boldly goes to a police station and looks for help from the detectives.
Well,
from the police.
they're on this train, and so the police are on the train as well, because the police know that Lupin is on the train.
Yeah,
but Lupin is basically pretending to be somebody else, and he's putting the name of Lupin on this guy that stole his wallet from him, which is also very funny. I read this story the other day when I was rereading to get up to Seven of Hearts, and it's great the way he describes his wallet. He's like, "Oh yeah, he took my wallet," which not only did it have my money and identification, but it also had some compromising letters, and it had some plans that I was going to set up for capers later on, and it had information for me to get via telegraph from some of my people that I was working with. I really need that wallet back.
Yeah, it's a good story, but you know, the only relation that this episode of this show had to that was the fact that at the very last minute, he tricks the police as they're coming on the train into thinking the other guy is him, and the guy gets arrested. But the arrest did not take place on the train. It did not take place anywhere near a train station. It wasn't like a quick switcheroo. In fact, everyone on the train at the beginning of the book or the story was convinced that the guy that had run off was Arsène Lupin, because they had been warned that Arsène Lupin might be on the train. So there was it wasn't like Arsène Lupin switching identities with the guy at the last second to get him arrested. The entire time, people thought that the other guy was Lupin.
Right.
So there was just so little related to this story, and then for the guy to just imply that they had just played out the acts of the Mysterious Traveler when all he had done is switch names with a guy. I think he just switched passports or something with the guy. It's like someone walks up to somebody and says, "You ever read Hamlet?" And they're like, "No." And they picks up a skull and bowls and uses it as a bowling ball and then walks away and says, "Now you have." Yeah, it's pretty much what it's like.
And then he says, "I Yoricked that guy."
It's like, "Are you a tennis player?" "No." And he smacks him with a racket. 15 love, and he just walks away. Drops the racket like he's dropping a mic. It was the most uncool thing I think I have ever seen in a television show, because it wanted to be cool so bad, but it was just like, no, I
didn't fit any of those criteria.
And the thing is, if you know the story, that's how it comes off. And if you don't know the story, it told you nothing. You don't know what that is. You don't know what the Mysterious Traveler is.
Have you ever read the story The Mysterious Traveler by Maurice LeBlanc, famous author of the Arsène Lupin books? No. Now you have. No,
What?
I haven't.
No.
You didn't do anything.
You name dropped the title.
And the author's other works of importance.
But he doesn't even do that much. He just asks him
but that's the joke.
Story of the Mysterious Traveler.
Well, there are probably plenty of stories called The Mysterious Traveler.
I think
that's the worst part.
I think that for the most part, it'd be pretty easy to figure out that it was an Arsène Lupin story for anyone who was even a minor fan. But again, it's just like, nothing in that show worked. It all came off like that. Every single episode, I was just like, why didn't they just make an Arsène Lupin show? Even if
The Mysterious Traveler was a radio show.
Yes, it was. That was wasn't that the one that was like a collection of different weird stories?
I don't know. I'm looking it up right now. This is The Mysterious Traveler, inviting you to join me on another journey into the strange and terrifying. I hope you will enjoy the trip. That it will thrill you a little and chill you a little, so settle back and get a good grip on your nerves and be comfortable if you can. Yeah. The malevolent narrator is portrayed by Maurice Tarplon.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a startling coincidence.
It is, isn't it? But yeah, so like hypothetically, by the time this show came out and the things that were happening on this show happened, the actual more recent reference to the mysterious traveler is an old radio show. So like it doesn't even work.
It's like, have you ever heard Have you ever heard the story of the mysterious traveler?
Yeah.
Which one? And then the guy just starts listing off episodes of the radio show. Turns out he's a big fan. As the police are arresting him, that show was so infuriating. First off, okay, so why wasn't the main character actually Arsène Lupin? And one of the reasons was probably, to film it like it would happen in the late 1800s. It would be very expensive to do that, and we'd have to, get rights to film in these streets and ask people to not come outside or open their windows or drive certain cars, yada yada. But okay, that's fine. But they did a modern Sherlock Holmes just recently on the BBC.
I mean,
you could have done that with Arsène Lupin. And saved a boatload of money and just had the character in the modern day. I mean, it's already been done. We have Lupin the Third.
If you wanted to really, keep with the idea that Arsène Lupin was a figure in the 1800s, you could do something about, let's say, his grandson.
Yeah, hypothetically speaking.
Hypothetically speaking.
But instead they went the route of, here's a guy that just really, really likes Arsène Lupin books, and he decided he's going to be Arsène Lupin. He even goes around calling himself Prince Sernine in one episode, and it's like, are you seriously telling me nobody's going to pick up on that?
No one's going to pick up on that.
Like in all of France, this one guy walking around pretending to be a guy named Prince Sernine. In Europe, in the one country where you're likely to find people who might actually...
In modern Europe, where there used to be princes, but there aren't anymore.
Yeah. But I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. He is a black guy. Maybe they're just assuming he's a prince from Africa or something. And
oh, the horrible jokes you could make up with that. Good Lord.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's so bad. It is so bad. None of the capers are anything as good as... They're not even a fraction as good as anything that happens in the Lupin books. Like, I could understand if they could only hit it 50% of the time, or even 25%, because those books are incredible. But I mean, his way of dealing with a necklace that he stole getting discovered on his person was to fake falling down and roll and toss it into a trash can.
What?
And worse than that, that's during the Prince Sernine episode too. So like, there's already police on him. Like, is this guy really a prince? How can you not tell? You're the police. You don't know what's going on in France right now.
I mean, even if he was a prince, what is he gonna be? Like, I mean, like the prince of what?
I don't know. The Prince of Arsène Lupania.
Oh, okay.
It's like really rub it in that the police are incompetent. But no, there's also a part in the show where he does a prison break, and I think it was the 4th episode in. So I'm like, okay. Well, the rest of the show sucks, but if they're going to do the prison break, that'll be cool.
Yeah,
and
that'll turn it around.
Apparently, he needed information from someone. And in order to get that information, he had to help him escape from prison. He gets this guy out of prison by swapping with him. So he's in prison now. And he has to escape from prison, which you would think would be the main point of the episode. But he kind of just hangs around there for a while, gets in a fight, chats with people, and then pulls the classic jumping into the laundry truck as it drives away. In 2015, I'm sure that would totally work.
Yeah, they don't check those. It's fine.
It's like, wait, guys, there was a prisoner in there washing the clothes, and now the clothing truck is gone, and the prisoner's gone. What do you think happened?
I don't know.
Was nobody? Is there not a camera in there? Was nobody watching this guy? What?
Camera watching? What?
What are the prisons?
I don't recognize any of those words by themselves.
I mean, this isn't Canada where someone commits a crime and you just tell them to go to prison for a bit to make up for it, and they're like, yeah, okay, no problem.
Hey. Okay, well, that was a delightful respite. Delightful
There are people that like
diversion.
that show. There are people that like that show.
Yeah, I mean, we just did a 3-episode series on Trigun Stampede. Indeed.
All right. So we left off at them waiting by the fireplace and Varan.
Yeah, Varan comes in and Andermatt comes in a few minutes later.
And so these two start having it out, but immediately Varan is questioning about the letter that was sent to him, which he assumes came from Andermatt.
Well, he says it was signed by Andermatt as well.
Yeah.
He's like, you sent me a letter and told me to be here, and Andermatt's like, no, I didn't. You sent me a letter. And Varan's like, no, I didn't.
You sent me a letter. No.
No, you're the letter sender. No givesies backsies.
Yeah, so they both realize they're kind of being had here, but they get caught up in the heat of the moment, and Andermatt wants to get those letters back, and he wants to get the letters and the plans back from this guy. He seems to be focused on the letters at this point.
Right.
So he's not letting Varan leave, and at some point Varan gets a bit heated and tries to charge out, but Andermatt stops him. So Varan pulls out a gun on him. And here we go with the big culmination and the big surprise. Well, the first big surprise. There's two surprises here.
Yeah.
The first is that Maurice is startled because the gun flies from Varan's hand, and he heard a gunshot, and it was close by. And it is Daspry next to him who fired a gun at Varan while he was aiming at Andermatt and shot the gun out of his hand. He then steps out from behind the curtain and approaches the two and tells Varan that he was very foolish and very lucky because he only hit his gun, but he'd been aiming for his hand. So now Daspry is involved in this situation, and this is a bit confusing to Maurice because, well, in the moment, it still seems to make sense that Daspry was just preventing a murder and he was stopping things from getting out of control.
Right.
However, do you want to pick up on this one since
I mean, it's weird because Daspry starts to talk to them.
Save the second surprise. Just go with the first one for now.
Just cut me off when I get to where you want to go, because this is where things start to get a little bit blurry, right? Like, Daspry walks out and he starts talking to both of them, and like, he basically gets them both to confess about what's going on and what they're trying to do and what happened to the plans, and one of them is trying to buy the plans, and there's a whole bunch of back and forth between them where Daspry suddenly seems to have a bunch of information that he did not have before.
Yes, and Maurice kind of nails it as to what's going on here.
Well, like, what exactly happens here?
Well, he steps out.
Varan says he has the papers. Varan says he has the papers, and that he will give them to somebody for like 100,000 francs. And they actually bargain, and they come to agree at like 10,000 francs. And then Daspry tells Andermatt to sign a check for the 10,000 francs. And there's a great little sleight of hand here where Andermatt's like, I didn't bring my checkbook. Why would I have brought my checkbook? And Daspry hands his checkbook to him. Says, this is your checkbook, right? And Andermatt's like, yeah, I guess it is. Where did you get that?
Well, this is the first surprise. So
yeah.
So right about when Daspry informs Varan that he received a letter asking him to bring the papers, which hadn't been mentioned at that point. Maurice comes to the conclusion that Daspry is Salvatore, which indeed he is. So
that's where he got all that information, yeah.
So he kind of finagles things and gets Varan to confess to having the papers and makes a deal with him to buy them for 10,000 francs, and then he does indeed have Andermatt write a check for him because well, I mean, I don't know, Andermatt is just there to whatever, I guess, but he's going to sign the check. And after that is when Daspry says, all right, now what about the letters? Do you have the letters? And he's going to, he asks Andermatt if the letters are worth $10,000 to him. And he's like, yeah, of course they are. He's like, okay, we'll give him $10,000 for the letters.
Francs.
I don't actually.
They're using French money.
Yeah,
they're using French money.
Yes, Frank's right. Frankfurters. They're paying in hot dogs. So,
okay.
Shoot, when is it that they actually open the safe? That's the part I can't remember.
Well, like Varin says that the letters are hidden in the room, and then how does it exactly work?
See, because I forget.
He says the letters are not in the hiding place, and then someone says yes they are, and so he says, well, prove it. Open up the hiding place, and you'll show me. And what's his name? Varin is like, I don't have the way to open it. I need the Seven of Hearts. And Dasper says, yeah, I have the Seven of Hearts. Here's the iron plate that you didn't realize was important when you killed Lacombe. And now, Varin is freaking out and is like, no, I won't open it. I won't touch it. And Dasper just kind of gives up on him because now he's lost it. Dasper Salvatore walks up to the
knight,
to one of the mosaics. It's a king, actually.
Oh, the king, yeah.
King with a sword. And
like a playing card king with a sword.
Yeah.
Looking thing.
Well, that actually appears later on. Like when they're asking, how did you figure out that you needed to use the Seven of Hearts card here? He's like, oh, this particular mosaic shows a king that's exactly the same as the King of Hearts in a deck of playing cards. He's got the same sword, the same hair, the same kind of stance. And so Dasper opens up the safe, the hidden safe, and the letters aren't there.
Lo and behold. So, of course, Varan is a little pleased by this, right? Because this solves a lot of problems on his end, as far as he's concerned. But Salvatore is no dope.
No, he's not a dope.
He takes the Seven of Hearts, and he turns it the other way and places it again on this little insert.
Right.
And this causes a secondary mechanism to activate, and the safe turns and reveals another slot, wherein the letters...
There's another smaller safe tucked into the door of the larger safe.
Yeah. and herein we get the letters, which this part is actually pretty interesting, too.
Mm-hmm.
So without going over everything in too fine detail, what happens is Varan is kind of, Andermatt pays for the letters and the plans, but Salvatore decides that he wants to keep the checks that were written, and he sends Varan packing. And this is the second big reveal of the story, because up until now, something has been missing from this entire story. And Varan vows to get revenge. He says that he's going to come back and get one over on Salvatore. One day it'll be him on top, etc., etc. And he asks for Salvatore's name. He says, I want to know the name of the person I'm going to get revenge on. And Salvatore says, very well, my name is Arsène Lupin. And at that point, Varan loses all hope.
Yeah.
It's described as the hope draining from his face. It's just a beautiful moment. Probably the best moment in the whole story, where it's just like, I am Arsène Lupin. And he has not been in the story. He has not been mentioned in the story. This is the moment when you first hear the words Arsène Lupin in the story. The entire time you're thinking it's some weird thing going on with some guy named Salvatore, and you're sitting there hanging on the edge of your seat for the entirety of the story, wondering, where is Arsène Lupin in this?
When are we going to get to the fireworks factory?
Right?
Yeah.
And only to be given this at the very end, after all this cool stuff has already happened with this Salvatore guy, essentially performing a heist. He's getting the plans for himself. He's getting the checks for himself. And he's giving Varan the boot. And he's
even giving Andermatt the letters.
Yeah, he gives Andermatt the letters, and this is another little fun thing right for the end, a very Arsène Lupin thing that happens here.
Right.
Do you want to tackle this one, or should I continue?
Yeah, so Andermatt is happy. He's like, okay, I paid a lot of money, but I'm a banker, I can afford it, and I got these letters that'll help me confront my wife. And so he Varian is like, I'll get revenge, and Lupin is like, you'll get revenge on Arsène Lupin, and Varian's like, no, and he slinks off. And then Andermatt's like, can I have the letters? And Lupin is like, yeah, here's the letters, and then he slinks off. And when Lupin gives Andermatt the letters, Madame Andermatt like faints. She goes, oh, and she freaks out and she faints. But Andermatt doesn't hear it, and so he just walks out. And then Maurice walks out from behind the curtain. He's like, "Oh no, Madame Andermatt is ill, and how could you have given those letters to Andermatt there?" And then Lupin pulls out from basically behind his pocket, behind his back. He pulls out a little package, and he's like, "Here's the letters. These are the actual letters." And she gets her consciousness back. And she's like, "Oh, what did you give to my husband?" He's like, "Oh, I took all these letters and I reworded them a way that was much more harmless. And then I gave him those." And
Yes.
she's like, but the handwriting. And he's like, I can imitate handwriting. It's fine.
I'm Arsène Lupin. Deal with it.
I'm Arsène freaking Lupin.
It's great that we know that he was in the safe early in the story. So
Yeah.
he actually had all of this set up beforehand, because he must have taken those letters from the safe originally.
Yeah.
And then he took them somewhere, forged the new letters, which means this must have happened after their first visit from Madame Andermatt.
Yeah.
Because he probably didn't understand what needed to be done with them before then. So he did all this in a very brief time, and he managed to get... Oh, no, I'm wrong. I am wrong. I believe what happened is, after the story Andermatt gave him, he probably forged a set of letters, so that when he did finally get the safe open and the real letters were there, he just switched them with the ones he had in a
Well,
sleight of
maybe,
hand.
but he wouldn't have been able to. He wouldn't have known her handwriting if he hadn't already had the letters.
Sure he would have. He could have gotten that anywhere, knowing who she was. He's Arsène Lupin.
I guess. That's possible.
I don't remember if the story actually says how he did the switcheroo, but it seems more likely that he just prepared the letters, because even the writing that Salvatore did back to Madame Andermatt implied that he didn't have the letters yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he probably forged some letters, and then when he found the letters in the safe, he probably suspected they were there, and just swapped them out as soon as he could. But he had the letters ready. So this is a very Arsène Lupin thing to have in this kind of story. And it's not even the best sleight of hand in the whole story.
Oh, there's also the point that what was in the large safe was actually a little box, like that should have been there, and so I mean, the question that hasn't been answered yet is why did Etienne Varin kill himself? And it turns out that when Lupin was in there the first night, when Maurice was sitting there, still as a stone statue, he found the little casket that was inside the big hidden safe that had a bunch of diamonds in it and stuff like that, and he took that. And so when Etienne Varin came, he went and looked for the diamonds, and since they weren't there, that's what caused him to kill himself. And so now we've tied up everything in several neat little packages.
Yep, but even that wasn't the best sleight of hand. I'm referring to something completely off to the side of the entire story that we didn't really mention at the beginning. But it's a nice little touch. Throughout this story, you have two characters that show up that... you have Daspry and you have Salvatore. Mm-hmm. Daspry seems like he's interested in solving this mystery, and Salvatore is a big part of this mystery.
Mm-hmm.
But at the very beginning of the story, when Maurice is describing his friend Daspry, he mentions that delightful Daspry, who would later die on the shores of Mauritania or something 6 months from now. So he mentions that this friend of his that he had a really good time with, at the very beginning of the story, he does mention that he dies 6 months later, which is a kind of innocuous line, just something that feels like it's part of him, dictating from the future, the past events, and remembering his friend.
Yeah.
And the whole story goes by, and you learn that this guy is Arsène Lupin, and you're like, well, wait a minute. Arsène Lupin doesn't die 6 months from now, or at least you assume he doesn't.
Right.
And he does at the end of the story. Daspry says that he thinks it's time to take a visit to Mauritania or something. I forget.
Morocco, yeah.
Or Morocco, yeah. It was Morocco. Mauritania was a different story. There is actually an Arsène Lupin story where he ends up becoming the king of an entire portion of a land called Mauritania.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great story. I think. No, it wasn't. It wasn't the Crystal Stopper. There's a story where essentially he becomes the king of Mauritania through a very ridiculous set of circumstances, very much worth reading. But he has claim to the land there. And this is land that who was it? It was some king. There was a king that wanted this land, or could really use this land for something.
Okay, yeah.
Lupin gets arrested in another book, and his meal ticket out is bargaining by offering to give up Mauritania to the king, which Lupin commands so much power in these stories. He is able to, in his prison cell, get someone to go and fetch the king to put on a disguise and come visit him in his cell so that he can make this deal. The reach of this man is more incredible than pretty much any character in all of writing history.
Yeah.
Yeah, he makes Moriarty look like a work idle git. I totally messed that line up. That was a line from the BBC show Chef. He's talking about how hard of a worker he is, and he goes, compared to me, so-and-so is a bone idle work shy git. I can't remember who it was he said, but it was someone I didn't know anyway. Some British person.
Fair enough.
I guess the Mike Rowe of Britain or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of stories where the things that Lupin does just get more incredible and incredible as time goes on. Like the story of how he becomes the king of Mauritania is so ridiculous, and it's like, it's implausible, yet at the same time, you can see it happening just because of the charm of the character of Lupin. Because everything he does is much more psychological than really, he might have it planned from A to Z, but this is not a logical sequence of events necessarily from anything but the standpoint of how he appeals to people's emotions. I mean, there is a story where an entire... He's essentially in front of a firing squad, and all of their guns fail to work when they try to shoot him. And it is through a series of circumstances that he masterminded well in advance of knowing that they were going to open fire on him, that it's like, this shouldn't work, but the way it's written, it totally works.
Yeah. Yeah, these are excellent stories. They kind of all are. There's no bad Lupin story, except the ones that are on Netflix, apparently.
Yeah, well, I've never seen, outside of anime, I've never seen a Lupin story that was done well in any media other than Maurice LeBlanc's own books. Yeah. I guess the Lupin the Third comics also, obviously.
But they're a little... I mean, they're not the same... They're a little different.
Yeah, they're not quite the same character, but there is actually... I discovered this 2 years ago, I think, when we were talking a lot about this story. The Blonde Lady, the story where Lupin takes on Sherlock Holmes. There is actually an old anime from, I think, the 1970s or 80s of that story.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's just like a one-off. I think it's like a maybe 45 minutes, 90 minutes animated movie, and supposedly it plays out a lot like the story itself, which it was a good story. Yeah, they usually are. Yeah, that's one that's going to be difficult to tackle. Like what angle are we going to approach that one from? Because that story it's not my favorite Lupin story. The Prison Break one really is, but just the fact that Arsène Lupin goes up against Sherlock Holmes, and
I think those are my favorite, honestly. They're just so great.
And they're really funny too. Like there's a lot of humor in them. Plus Maurice is in it briefly at the beginning. That was a great part of that story. I think it's one of the few times that you actually get to see Arsène Lupin scared, because Maurice LeBlanc, while he might have been making fun of Sherlock Holmes a bit, he still treated the character as an intelligent character in that story, to the point where Lupin was actually worried about him. He did actually have a lot of... there was a huge threat hanging over Lupin that Sherlock was going to catch him. And on top of that, he's in a restaurant boasting to Maurice about his original encounter with Sherlock Holmes, because the Parisian police have now called for the help of the famous English detective to catch Arsène Lupin. And so he's in a restaurant laughing about this with Maurice. And as he's sitting there in the restaurant, he suddenly ducks down and lowers his head, and he's like he's hiding. And Maurice is like, well, I've never seen him actually act like this before, because Sherlock Holmes and Watson have just walked into the room and just completely by coincidence decided to come in for a meal. But we can talk about that another time, because that whole scene where they're in the restaurant is worth talking about on its own.
Yeah. Fair enough. All right, I guess we'll call this an episode then.
Yeah.
This is a little different from what we usually do. Like, we were even more in plot synopsis mode this time than usual. But
we were tossing that one back and forth quite a bit there.
Yeah, hopefully this'll be entertaining for somebody somewhere in some world at some time.
I think until we hit the...
But like the real point of these episodes generally is to get you to read stuff, because you should go read stuff. Reading books is great, and nobody does it anymore. I'm not just saying that because I'm a writer that wants to sell things.
Well, I mean, we are telling people to read Arsène Lupin. We're not. Up until 5 seconds ago, we weren't telling people to read our stuff.
Well, I mean, there are links in the description, Wink, that allow us to... Well, no, because this book is out of copyright at this point, and so we'll have a link in the description to actually go take a look at The Extraordinary Adventures of Arsène Lupin, Gentleman Burglar. And
free,
below that, there will be links
reading.
to free, excellent stories that you will enjoy and cherish and laugh at and have fun. So do that, and that's where we'll call it for tonight. Yeah. So have a good week, everybody, or good weekend, and we will see you later. As always, I'm Rudy,
and I'm Justin, and now you know the story of the mysterious traveler.
Oh wait, there was one thing that I wanted to mention about this right before we go, that. Neither Salvatore nor Jean Dasbury, neither of their names is like anything near to an anagram of Arsène Lupin.
Okay, well, let's see. Salvatore...
Like, they're missing a lot of the important letters.
Salvatore has A-R-S-E. So this is one of the things I noticed about reading these stories. Like, you can usually find a letter... Like, the V is very close to a sideways N. It's just missing one line.
Uh-huh.
So you possibly have an N there. And then you have an L and a T, which the line count in those would give you enough lines for the letter E, and you would get the final E.
Well, you're still missing a U and all kinds of stuff.
He doesn't.
Anyway.
He only gives you Salvatore, which you can... theoretically make a conversion to Arsène, but he did that a couple of times. Like, I think Prince Sernine is missing a letter to make it Arsène Lupin.
No, but I mean, like, these are missing quite a few. But anyway, I just thought that was... I mean, it might be something that LeBlanc didn't think of until later to incorporate into the...
Yeah, this was his first book, so he hadn't...
So, yeah. Anyway, that was one thing I just wanted to mention before we go. All right, now we are out of here. See y'all later.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Wordy Pair Podcast. Our passion is all things writing, world building, and getting into the weird and wonderful world of fiction. We hope you enjoyed our unique takes. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to get your weekly dose of writing weirdness. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hit us up on Twitter. For Rudy, it's @Rudolph_Cone. And for Justin, @Ninja Mouse Chew. See you next time on the Wordy Pair Podcast.